101 for network admins. It's just going to show you some of the basic things you can start doing to make your life easier, and some of the tools that I've used it on. Basically, what is scripting? The old days, it was the auto-exec batch file that you started with your computers, and then they started making login scripts on network, whether you were in Novell range or then in the Windows domain. But basically, a script is a set of commands aimed at automating a process or to solve a problem. Here's a very simple problem. How do you turn off the computers in the computer lab at the end of the day? Well, you found that there's a shutdown exe command on a resource kit with Microsoft, and you can put in a computer name, put this on like a cron job to run at midnight or 1 a.m. in the morning, and turn off the computers after the lab is closed. And that's something simple you can do. What are we going to cover in here today? Well, we're going to talk about Windows Script Host and what exactly it is. And we're going to do most of our scripting commands will be done in Vbscript. And two main areas that we're going to talk about. The first one is Wmi, which allows us to talk to, modify physical computers on our network. Say I'm the network admin, and instead of going around to each computer to make a computer change of a registry file or make a computer change of some sort, I can write a Wmi script that will go out and do that for me. And I can loop through all the computers on my domain. The second part we're going to talk about is ADSI, which stands for Active Directory Services Interfaces. And that's basically just the programming component of Active Directory where we can now, instead of talking to computers, we're talking to our network domain, and we can modify user objects or computer objects on our domain level. So that's the two main areas that we're going to talk about. Now, these are both very, very powerful things, and before you start playing around on your real network, please play with these and know how they work, because you can do some serious damage if you do these incorrectly. Here's a very simple 3-line script that will display the amount of free space on the local C drive. This scripting here is Vbscript. The first line of it basically is going to connect to our Wmi service. The second line here is basically going to ask the Wmi service to find a particular parameter. And in this case, it's going to ask it about the logical disk drive C:, and then we're going to echo or pop up on the screen, like in a message box, the amount of free space left on our C drive. And if you run this little 3-line script, it'll pop up a box like this. All these script examples I'm going to have in here are going to be posted up on the CALI site, so don't worry about trying to write any of these down. And this whole presentation will be up there as well that you can refer to later. But most of my scripts, when I show a little clip of it, I'm only going to show part of it. There's more stuff around it that we're going to have that's going to be in there. Here's another little script. We're going to start building upon that little 3-line script. Now we're going to build it up a little bit bigger. And this particular one is going to show us how much physical RAM memory is in a computer. The first part of it here, where the str computer, that means we're going to run this command on the local computer and get the information on my local laptop. But if you change that dot and put in a computer name on your network, it will go ask that particular computer how much memory it has. And that's quite useful. Again, there's some gory details here of connecting to the Wmi service, asking it about the logical memory configuration, and then we're going to echo it back to the screen just like we did last time. And it'll pop back a message like this. Now, as you saw back I'm about back up here, on that last line, I'm actually putting in the words total physical memory, KB, and then outputting the value. And that's what we see on our output. One interesting note on the output here, since I've already started talking about Vbscript, which is what we're writing in, and we're using WMI, but what is this Windows Script host thing I mentioned first? Well, you see the window up there says Windows Script host. Windows Script host is basically the environment that your script runs in. There's actually two environments. The default one that I've been running these in is basically a Windows-based environment. There's also a command line-based environment that you could run this in as well. One's called C script for command line script, and the other one is Wscript for Windows scripting. And that allows these commands to run. Now, instead of popping up all these cute little message boxes with details, one neat little trick we can do is we can actually have our script open up an Internet Explorer window, and then we can put our results using some basic HTML coding and put our results into a window. This particular script right here, all it would do is basically open up a window. It sets the width, the height. It's turning off like the toolbar, status bar, and all that good stuff. And all it will do is it will basically produce an empty IE window. The good thing about this is, like I said, is that now we're going to start writing some of these scripts to write our information into this window to produce our output. Okay, so here we go. Here's another cute little WMI script. What it's going to do is it's going to output all of the services on this computer, and it's also going to ask it what the status is of the service, whether it's stopped, running, or whatnot. The basic top part of this script here is basically setting up the HTML code, and it's using these object doc to write the HTML code, and you kind of see all the table. I'm making a table, putting some titles on the table. The bottom part of this script is, again, it's using that str computer variable, so I can run this on the local computer. I can put in a computer name across my network. And it's doing a little bit differently in connections to the Wmi Service. And it is going to basically, you see a select star from Win32 service. It's basically doing a query to the service and coming back with all the services that are running. And there's basically a loop. You see this for each object. It's basically doing a loop, running through each object, doing a display name on the object, and doing telling us what the state is. And when you run a script like that, the output you get is something like this. Okay, we're going to run a little more information on WMI here. This one is going to show us the computer name, the physical RAM in the computer, and tell us the time zone. So we're going to pull a couple different pieces of information and put it together. Basically, the top part here, again, we're using the str computer to use it on the local computer. We connect to the WMI service. Then in there, we're asking it the computer name and outputting that, and the total memory. Now on the total memory line, about halfway through there where it says total physical memory, instead of just getting back the bytes, because that's just a huge number, I'm actually converting it to megabytes, and then I'm also making it do taking the integer of it so that I won't have any decimals after it. I'll just round it off to a nice even number, because the memory is like 128 megs of RAM, 256. You know the basic values that it is. The neat thing about it, also on the bottom part here, is I'm asking it for the time zone. We've had people that have got their computers set on a wrong time zone, and my general login script syncs the time, so the hours are always right, but their time zone was totally wrong. And when we interact with Microsoft Exchange, it uses the time zone to offset appointments and email stuff, and it was really driving some people crazy. And so I had to go track down where some of these misplaced time zones were on the network. So I run this script, and this is, like I said, run on the local computer, and here it's outputting the data for me. Now we've been doing all these scripts so far just on the local computer. The next thing we're going to do is add the ability to open up a text file and read in those computer names so we can cycle through all the computers on our network. Okay, to do that, the top part of our code is going to, actually this is sort of the whole thing. The top part is opening up a read-only file. In my case, I made one called cpu.txt. And in that CPU file, I just put the computer names of all my computers on our domain. Just list them one per line. The middle part where it says more code is here. That's basically where I do all the, open up everything else. And then you see the str computer is I'm actually reading a line from that text file, and it's going to loop through that text file and do the same process for every computer on our network. And at the very end, of course, I'm closing things. Now, the output of something like that, which is basically just taking that script before of this computer name, memory, and time zone, and just cycling it through all the computers on my list. And here I can get a list quickly of all my computers and what time zones are set at in the memory. And I can scroll through there, and I'll be able to pick off the ones that were set incorrectly. Or maybe there's a computer out there that I didn't realize still only had 128 megs of RAM that should have gotten a memory upgrade. I'll find it on here. Okay, a couple things on the Wmi service. Here we're going to use another script to display the local logged on user. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a list of computer names of all the computer names in my computer lab, and I want to find out who's logged on all those computers from sitting at my desk. I want to know who's out in those labs. So I can create a script that will again read in the computer names. Here I am querying the Wmi service to get back some information. And at the very bottom, I'm looking for the username of logged in. So when I run this script, it'll output the computer names, and it will show me who the local logged in user is. I caught 4 people in there the other day when I was running this. It's kind of neat because then you can also find out especially if you put your computers in order like next to each other, you can see if the same person is logged on 2 or 3 times, and then you kind of wonder, well, what are they doing? Are they doing legitimate stuff, or do they have their wife and friend and someone else all logged in using the computers in the lab? That's kind of a neat little script. And anything is like that is I can even run some of those from home. So at night when I'm connected in and the computer labs are open to midnight, I can see who's in the labs at different times of the day. A couple things on the Wmi service. Basically on Windows 2000 and XP computers, it's already preloaded. It's already on there. Some people may have turned off the Wmi service saying, oh, I don't need that. I'll disable it. So you need to make sure it's running. The key to finding a lot of this information I've been showing you with Wmi service is to finding what they call the class, and then you find some variables inside of each of the class. And you also have to have the admin rights, either on a local PC like I have here, or make sure whoever's running it has basically domain admin rights. Because if you go across the network to query a machine, the account that's being sent to authorize that is the account who's logged in. And if you don't have admin rights to that remote machine, it's not going to give you any information back because that's the security on it. The neat thing with Microsoft is they created something called a Script-O-Matic, or what they call the Wmi Script-O-Matic. And what that does, you can download it. And what it does is you can open the drop-down list and you can scroll through there and you'll find the particular class. Once you pick a class, it will come back and show you all the variables that are inside that particular class. And then you can click the run button right there, and it will pop up the output of that class and show you what kind of results your local computer will show for that class. So when I was looking for some of these different variables, whether it was time zone or memory, I'd go through here and find a class and query it and come back with the information. That's how I assembled some of these values that I've been showing you on Wmi. So that's a very neat tool to download from Microsoft, and it really helps out. Second part of this presentation here, I'm going to talk about ADSI. ADSI it's been around for a little while, and basically what it can do for you is you can read, modify, create, or delete domain objects. And not necessarily just the network domain objects. Just during the last hour, I was sitting here playing with it and basically repointed it back at this machine. So now I was actually playing with some of the user objects on this machine. So you can do it local to the machine or domain as a whole. A very simple script on ADSI here is I'm going to ask my domain to come back and give me all the users that are created on my domain. The top line there, basically I'm binding or connecting to the Ave Maria domain. And the second line there, I'm using a filter and it says, just give me back all the user objects. And the next part of it, I am just looping through, putting a username and then their login name into a table. Again, I'm using one of those IE output windows to show my values. And it comes back with a list like this, where it shows me usernames and names on the network. Very, very simple. You can do the same type of thing where I can query the domain and ask it to show me all the groups that have been created on the network. The only real change on there now is my filter is now, instead of being user, now it's set to group. And basically the same thing. I'm asking the group name to go along with it. And here's a bunch of the different groups on our domain. Kind of simple right here. Now I'm going to ask it a little more specific question. I'm going to ask it to come back with all the members of the group called students. I'm sure most domains have a group called students. You put all your students into it, so that way you can set rights based upon student membership. And at the very bottom here, I'm actually making a count, so I could display the count at the very end to show how many users are on, how many students are in my group called students. And when I run this one, it runs through and displays all the usernames of the students and shows me I have 246 objects created. Considering our student population is actually around 200, it looks like I got some extra ones in there that I haven't gotten rid of yet. Here's another neat little script. We're actually going to do put two of these things together. The outer script, or outer loop, is going to go through all the students, one at a time. And the inner loop down here at the bottom is going to ask all the groups that student belongs to. And so it's going to go through all the students and show me the group names of all the groups they belong to and put it in an output window. And here's the basic output. I actually also included the full name up there with the username, so I got a little easier to read. And then it shows me all the groups that each student belongs to. I know they belong to students because that's where I started and asked all the students. But some of them are class of 2004, class of 2005. Some of them are faculty research assistants, and it produces a report that I can go through to see if there's anything that doesn't look right. Another thing that most people are familiar with, if they've been around in the NT world, though the same window pretty much is still on Active Directory, but it's a little different, is some of these user variables. And what we've been querying so far is the top one up there called username. That last script, I pulled the full name. Now, some of these other flags on here, down at the bottom where it says user must change password to next logon and the password never expires flag. We're going to talk about those two next here. The password never expires flag. This is about the hardest one that when I was trying to figure out how it works, because what Microsoft has done is they've taken a lot of those little checkboxes. Instead of putting one checkbox to one variable that you can ask it what the results is, they lumped them all together into one variable, and they call that variable user flags. And you actually have to take that variable called user flags and actually break it down into some of the bits and actually look at only part of that number to see if the flag is set for a particular option. For example, the password never expires flag is actually based upon the hex H, the 10,000 hex number is where it's set at. Whether that is set to 0 or 1 is based upon whether or not that flag is actually flipped over on that window. And so my script is getting a little more complicated where I run through, of course this script is running through each student again. It is then pulling the user flag variable for each student as it goes through. It looks at that H10,000 variable, and that's why I'm doing an AND on it. And if that comes back as a 0, then I know their password will expire. And if it comes back anything else, then the password does not expire. And when I run a script like this on our student accounts, it shows me that some of them are set to expire and some of them are set not to expire. A lot of times during the summer, I'll freeze their accounts so they won't expire on them because they tend to forget them. They come back in the fall. When I come back in the fall, then I flip them all back. Now the next thing we can do is the force the user to change the password on next logon flag. Now this one is actually quite nice that they finally did on this variable, is they actually put it to a particular variable and not hid it inside this massive number that you had to decipher. And the variable on this one is called just password expired. And if it's 0, then the password is not expired and it's still good. If it's flipped to basically 1, then they have to change their password the next time they log into the network. Those two flags kind of work together, and I actually ended up writing a little program taking these script ideas, and instead of having them in as scripts, I kind of threw them into a little Visual Basic program that I could just compile and then run at any time that I want. And the neat thing on this is the bottom 3 buttons on this is the fun stuff. The second button, when I click on that one, it will go through all the students in my domain, and it will make sure that their passwords are not expired right now. So it will uncheck that expired box, and it will go through and check the box that says their passwords will not expire like all summer long or over Christmas break. Then when they come back from break, I go back to the third button on this one, which runs the script that will go back and uncheck the box, and it'll allow their passwords to start expiring again. And it turns it all back. And the last one is actually kind of fun, but I've never really run it yet, but it will work. And that's a button that will, if I click that button, it'll run through the network, and it will immediately expire every student password. And the next time they walk into the computer lab, they'll have to change their password. That one's kind of a fun one to think about. You can finally get back at these people that keep their passwords the same. You can force them to change, and you can do it whether you have 200 students or 1,000 students. It's just a matter of running the script. A lot of times, and I have seen this on some of the Technoids threads, is how do I create accounts in a mass creation, for the new students starting in the fall? Well, there's a lot of ways of doing it. There are some command line tools that Microsoft has put out for adding users. You can also create users, and this is how I've done it in the past, is we've been on Exchange 5.5, and it has an account import process that will even create the NT accounts on the back end. And I've used that in the past. But here is a way using ADSI to create the accounts, and you can create everything that you want on them. And basically what I do is I started up creating a source file that it's going to read the information from. It is going to, here's one line of information at the bottom, and my script so far is just doing a very basic account creation. It's creating a username, a password, a full name, a description, and a batch file or the login script that account needs to run once someone logs in with it. And you basically set up one line of information on a text file for the script to pull in. And here's a basic script for creating a user account. My script first reads in one line of information from the text file. And you see the little tilde sign in there is where I split all the data fields apart into separate pieces of information. And that information is put into a variable called myUser. And myUser0 has the login name. My01 has the password. My02 has got the full name. My03 has got the description. And My04 has got the login script name. Now that corresponds to this previous slide where I actually set up each field was designed as that. Username, password, full name, description, and login batch file. And what I do is actually, when I'm creating the user, I reference these various variable names and put them in the right spots. Now, with Active Directory or an NT world, the number of variables that you can set when you're creating an account is basically everything. You just have to go look in some of the books and resources to find out what the variable name is so you know which field to assign it to. And at the very end, where I say user.setInfo is where it takes all the information I've gathered, sends it to the network, and says, create that account. And then this particular one will echo a box up on the screen that says, account created, and gives me the computer name or account name that was created. So this is a very basic account creation script. If you were going to do this, you'd have to develop something like this a lot more to actually work. And probably I'm going to be doing that this summer to make this work a lot better for me. Some of the resources that you have out there. This is a really good book. I brought it with me. It's big and thick it's from Microsoft, even though, and it has a lot of this information that I've been talking about is all in here. The neat thing is they also have basically this entire book online on their MSDN website. I actually got it hard linked on this page here. So if you download this presentation, you can go click on this and go off to Microsoft's website to read the information. Some of the other resources that I like, Microsoft has also got a Script Center page where they have put tons of script examples to do a lot of the same things I've been talking about, how to create accounts, a lot of these different variables. They have them all out there for you to find. Some of the other scripts websites that I've been to and liked, and they got good examples. WinScripter, ADSI for NT, 15seconds.com. There's a lot of good websites. If you go into Google, do a search on Microsoft ADSI or Microsoft Wmi, you'll find tons of websites. Go look at them. Look at them, find the information you're really looking for, because the more sources you can get, the more better picture you get on some of these variables and how they work. And that is basically what I have to talk about here. Does anybody have any questions? Yes. Correct. That's probably a different way to use it. I haven't really thought of that. That's an interesting thought. I know this last year we tried to made sure that we did not have. I mean, I don't want to have admin rights of student-owned laptops, just because. But that's an interesting idea. If you, that's an interesting way. I'll show you. Question? Oh, for multiple computers, for logging in multiple times. I don't know if 2003 has that. Question? I haven't, but you can do. I had a friend that made basically some login scripts. He was using kicks as opposed to this, but basically doing the same WMI type calls in there. And he's dumping all the information into an Access database, and he was doing it to, we'll say, to the max, going through all the different variables, and each record would have everything on a particular computer. It would have, besides some of the little things I was showing, it would have, the version of the, QuickTime installed, the version of the media player installed. It would show, the video card. It would show the make of the hard drive, the make of the CD-ROM, and it would basically just be one line in an Access database. And then he was doing other things with it at that point. But yes, you can start getting into some. Like I said, this is a scripting 101 class just to start. But yes, that is some of the neat things you can do, taking us to the next levels.
On the scripting you do with one of these checks, and he's talking about laptops. Would those laptops have to be on the domain?
Well, that's a darn good question, and I'm sure they're going to talk about it in their session, whether or not. Come later today and find out. I know in our cases last year, anybody came in with like XP Pro, we did not add those computers to our domain. We kept it to just our own physical owned computers, because we had students coming in with XP Home that of course can't even connect to a domain.
Right. Now we won't even have XP Pro. They don't have it. We won't support it whatsoever. Of course, the university site license for it, so we tell them where to get it. You get it on there, then they will get you. But that we basically putting it as a work. And it's worked out well, because all the when they log on, it still runs. We have a script that sets up the email and they set the master drive, sets up the printer's form and everything. So, but
exactly.
The thing is, we can't really monitor these things on the network. No idea what they got when they plug in.
Whether or not they have Blaster Worm running on it to take down your network, that's a real issue. Exactly, and that those are some good laptop issues. What you let on your network and stuff. We're working on some of those same issues, because we did have the our network was fine and patched against Blaster come last fall, but first day of upper level students came in, one or two of them brought in the Blaster worm with them, walked in the front door.
We really had a serious problem since we started educating our students. We get them basically in, they come in, and we do a good 4-hour orientation on laptops, make sure all the updates are done, they have the latest and greatest, the antivirus, we go through everything on the laptop, make sure it's 100%, and then educate on the stuff. And it has been quite successful when you still get one that's plugged in and really have more to where is this person connecting from so we can get to them. Now that's the problem is finding out where it's coming from.
Oh, exactly, because you try to backtrack and find out where some of the source of this traffic is coming from. Since we're a standalone law school, I do everything from the T1s to the switches to the wiring right to the desktop. So after a while, I got really good at finding a MAC address or finding an IP number and backtracking it exactly to where it was sitting, what spot it was sitting in my school, so we could go track down a
Scripts to find that and go
no, because right now I had to use a couple different resources to find that. I would love to create something that would get given a particular. Well, then the second part is finding them in the building.
Yeah,
well, even then, if you can't find them, if they've got a network account, you can shut down.
Exactly.
If you go to www.netreg.org, you'll find the code for it.
Luckily, in our case, on some of those, our switches have got like a black hole. So I was able to take their MAC addresses, put it in a black hole, and anything they sent out on the network, it got instantly trashed once it hit the switch and didn't start propagating to other students and stuff. Any other basic questions on scripting right here?
Are there any WMI costs that you're aware of where
Yes, there are on these WMI classes. There are software-related ones as well that will tell you exactly. There's even one in there that will talk about all the service packs that have been installed. Well, there's that. Or like the baseline security checker. Those are external, but this is inside WMI. You can query the computer as well. I mean, there's lots of ways of checking for service packs. That Script-O-Matic thing I was talking about a second or two ago. Since we got time, I'll fire it up here. This is the WMI Script-O-Matic one. And what it will do for me, it's basically an HTA application. Is that I can, from the drop-down list here, I can pick some of the different classes. Oh, let's find something that looks. Here's a BIOS one, and then it will come back and it just creates a very simple script to output all the different variables. And say I want to run this, and this particular one actually kicks it out and runs it in a DOS window using the DOS version. And here it shows the variable names and the values on, say, my particular laptop. Kind of hard to read. But it comes back and says, the manufacturer is a Dell Computer Corporation. And there's the RAM BIOS, A21, that's on this particular computer. So you can go through here and see what kind of variables you want to try to collect. And this is very nice if you're trying to produce a hardware inventory of what service levels the hardware's at, how much RAM, how much processor speed. And someone says, okay, well, how fast are our computers? Do we have any slow computers out on our network? Well, you say, well, yeah, we bought those ones 4 years ago. They're getting old. But here you can actually come back and run a script and create those types of things. And that is through the Script O Matic. And that's all through a lot of these different, and there's tons and tons of these classes in here to query on.
That's Microsoft add-on?
Yeah, you can download from Microsoft's website. I think there's a link on one of my last pages there for it. Or if you go on Microsoft, do a download search for Script O Matic, it'll come right up for you.
Are there any third-party tools you might recommend for scripting?
I'm sure there are. I don't get into a lot of them. I mean, you can, a lot of those third-party tools are using this underneath. You would to make a specialized tool that would go in and flag all the users to their accounts expired. Basically a one-line, couple-line script, and you could turn it into, compile it into an executable, using Visual Basic or something. And so a lot of these specialized scripts are using some of these technologies, ADSI and WMI, underneath to actually make the communications. And that's why you get some of these big, thick books like this that talk about, there's a lot of good examples in here about scripting across the enterprise. Talks about how you can go see all the computers on your network and query them and come back with all kinds of good information. That's basically it. If there's no other questions, that's it. Thank you. Sure can. That's why I brought it. I chug it 6.
I think we need to probably order this one.
That one's actually pretty good. I like it. Like I said, there's a link for it. Basically, it's all online.
Oh, really? Yeah. But the much stuff they put online, it's still nothing better than sit down with a good hard.
You are absolutely right, and that's the same reason why I have one sitting here.
Basically, what happens when you put all this stuff online? Somebody sits down and prints it all out anyway.
Exactly.
I have to ask, if you don't have domain admin permissions on your student laptops, how are you able to ensure the integrity of your network? Because you have no capability, you have no registration of their MAC addresses, so you have no way to really track them down. Plus, when they come in, you have no way to arbitrarily deny them a lease or dump them to a private net to redirect them, to force them to patch without being able to do anything else.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Some of the initial network designs on our building before I started there was that it was wide open. Anybody with any laptop can come in and plug in and have access, whether it truly is a student or someone walking in off the street. And that's a security issue that we've been looking at to rearrange our network to deny that. And
there are a lot of free tools. I implemented a solution using these clamps, using Linux. That is it's open firewall. All you can do is filter UDP 57, and if they're not done belong to a Mac, a good Mac address, they just want to go. So
you're absolutely right. That is an issue, and because
curious if you guys have
I don't have a solution.
Other than I cross the fingers and pray every day my network works. How's it going?
I work for a tyrant. Got it. Pretty awesome. 2003, this version is a lot better than version 1. Version 1's real limiting. Pretty much hit it this time.
Something that, if it can really do document management,
Awesome.
how does that interact with? Built it so good that it just.
Office 03, completely integrated. SharePoint stores it in a SQL database. Office accesses it straight from the database and saves it straight without ever going to the portal.
So it. They can save a copy off and take
They don't have to. It's on the portal.
on the portal. They can get it
If
from
you have
anywhere.
anywhere.
Except